Last time on a Tekken Retrospective, we looked at our second non-canon spin-off in Tekken Tag Tournament 2. We learned a bit of the basics of Tekken while we were at it thanks to Fight Lab. However fun Tekken Tag 2 might have been, the truth was harsher than that, as it severely underperformed, surpassing even the likes of Tekken 4 when it came to nearly killing the series. Namco was now down in the dumps for good. With negative profit from Tekken Tag 2 and an incredibly tight budget to work on the next game in the series, it wasn't looking good. But if there's one thing we know about Harada and seen him do in the past, it's dig himself and his team out of a surefire grave. And by God did he do it again. Except not as good as Tekken 5. Well, that depends actually. Tekken 7 wasn't as good of a game, but it sold much better, and okay, I'm rambling. It's Tekken 7! So yeah, it's no secret that Tekken Tag Tournament 2 was a major failure, selling only 1.8 million units, a staggering 2.5 million less than the previous biggest flop, Tekken 4. There are a lot of reasons we could attribute this to. The severe lack of balance in the roster, and speaking of the roster, the overwhelming amount of choices and useless characters, the shambolic netcode, the batshit insane combos and damage. Simply put, Tekken Tag 2 was not the kind of game that could support the series for a long time, or even for the foreseeable future. It was always just going to be a fun little extra title on the side. A few years into its release, I guess Harada and Namco finally realized that. So, the plan was clear now. Release Tekken Revolution. No! Harada, the hell, man!
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up and sit the hell down! And don't ask me for shit, okay?
Tekken Revolution was yet another extra title built off of Tekken Tag 2 and released for free, exclusively on the PS3. It was not intended as a fresh new Tekken game in the franchise, more as a little appetizer while fans waited for the big one. The problem with the big one's development was, Tekken Tag 2 fucked them so badly they had an even worse budget to work on Tekken 7 now. It was not looking good whatsoever for the brand new title, but hey, we've never known our beloved Tekken devs to quit. While Tekken 7 and Tekken Tag 2 used in-house engines, Tekken 7 was going to utilize something far easier that was sure to aid the smoothness and performance of the game. The newly released Unreal Engine 4. This made the game unbelievably ugly. Like, I'm not kidding, this might be the ugliest Tekken game that ever came out. At least 1 and 2 were funny ugly, 3 looked cool, 4 and 5 looked gorgeous, 6 looked pretty good, Tag 1 and Tag 2 respectively looked pretty good. But 7? Peep those faces, baby. Oh, hell yeah, gorgeous. Look what they did to my guy Lars. How about reusing the same body texture for every single character? How about bland and uninspired stages? There's enough complaints about Unreal Engine 5 in the current day as it is, so let me not add more by also complaining about its predecessor. Moving on. Tekken Tag 2's competitive scene surprisingly went on despite the game dying a slow and painful death, with no updates or new content coming at any point. So, thanks to the ever-so-faithful community, Tekken Tag 2 stayed alive just as long as it needed to, for Namco to finally announce Tekken 7. Announced at EVO 2014, Tekken 7 was set for a limited arcade launch in 2015 with a tiny roster, as opposed to the big console release it was set to have around 2017. The arcade run was met with generally positive reviews, praising a lot of the new mechanics. Some new members of the roster had mixed to downright horrible reviews for one reason or another, and around 2016, an updated arcade version, in the same vein as Tekken 6 Bloodline Rebellion was released, known as Tekken 7 Faded Retribution. It included updated mechanics, new additions to the roster, as well as new costumes. This was the version that the home release would be built on. Finally, we entered the next generation. On June 2nd, 2017, Tekken 7 was released for the PlayStation 4 as well as the Xbox One. Let's talk about the game that revived the series and brought it to where it is today. Tekken 7.
決着をつけるとするか。貴様をここで終わらせる。
私は平八さんを止めないといけないのです。たとえこの力に飲まれ命を失うことになったとしても。
So, as with any new game in the franchise, Tekken 7 introduces a myriad of new mechanics to the core gameplay. Only this time, some of them came gradually with new updates as the game followed a season-to-season formula. The immediate one that springs to mind is, there's no more bound, we now have Screw. Screw is a combo extender you can use while juggling. Moves with the Screw property make the opponent spin around and land on their ass, allowing you to dish out more damage before the end of the combo, or carry them to the wall for even more damage and a longer combo. Additionally, if you're new to the game or just plain lazy, you have an auto combo mode you can toggle. That just does it for you when you press 1, 2, and 3 in a sequence. This is not recommended past a certain level though, because the combo in question is never the best thing you can do or even optimal for the situation you're in. You can always learn a much better, higher damage combo yourself. Another interesting little mechanic they added is the Power Crush. Take Lars's down forward 1+2 for example. When you start the animation for it, it will absorb any attacks and land the hit, despite the fact that you will still take the damage dealt. It's not meant as a proper attack to just throw out, more so as a tool to escape pressure, as if your health is too low, the damage you take can still kill you. Now, how about the new rage mechanics? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, after over 20 years, Tekken finally got its equivalent of a fighting game super in Tekken 7. The Rage Art is a last resort attack you can use while in Rage, aka when your health is below 25%. You have the same ability as a Power Crush when you start up the animation, as opponents can't stagger you out of it. In fact, it's even better if your opponent is actively moving, as that means it's a guaranteed hit. If they happen to not be moving, then you're kinda fucked, as Rage Arts are generally around -22 and are launch punishable, meaning a badly timed or a panicked Rage Art will get you killed as your health is already low enough. Some Rage Arts, however, are safe upon a block, but that usually means they're highs and are duckable, so if your opponent reacts fast enough and knows the matchup, they can still punish it. Another interesting thing to note is that the lower your character's health is, the more damage a Rage Art deals, with your health being really low usually leading to a killing Rage Art. One other Rage mechanic is the Rage Drive, popularized as the blue stuff by iconic Tekken commentators Tasty Steve and Rip. A Rage Drive is a much stronger or sometimes altered version of a move, giving either a Screw for big combo damage or leading to a guaranteed grounded attack. Usage of both the Rage Art or the Rage Drive will mean you don't have Rage anymore, so you gotta pick your poison. After Season 2 of the game launched, another new interesting mechanic was added, the Wall Bounce, which gives certain moves a bounce mechanic once you hit them on a wall, leading to an extended combo. This one was not received very well. A lot of other new camera angles and changes to the movement were made, with the movement being criticized for feeling sluggish compared to a game like Tekken 5, leading to sidesteps not being utilized as well. But yeah, there's a lot more we could get into that I'd rather save for when we talk about the different seasons of the game. For now, let's talk about that roster. It was pretty decent at launch. A lot of characters were gone and didn't make a return. Characters like Beck, Christy, Roger, Wang, and Bruce were gone, while some others were later added as paid DLC. Our main cast of course returned, and we got an abundance of fresh faces as well. The new characters include the likes of Kazumi Mishima, Kazuya's late mother and Heihachi's wife, Shaheen, a Saudi Arabian fighter looking to avenge his friend's death, Josie Rizal, a kickboxer from the Philippines who hopes to join the Tekken Force, Claudio Serafino, an exorcist from Italy, Lucky Chloe, a weird idol, Catarina Alves, a Brazilian fighter looking for her adoptive father, Gigas, a huge man who was experimented on by G-Corp, and Master Raven, pretty much a female version of Raven who is his master, and she also plays around the same. The three new DLC characters introduced are Leroy Smith, an American martial artist with a cane and a dog, Fakumram, a Muay Thai fighter from Thailand with badass tattoos, and lastly, Lydia Sobieska, a karate fighter and the Prime Minister of Poland. The DLC characters were pretty cool, but Tekken 7 also had the first guest character since Gon in Tekken 3, as the game launched with Akuma from Street Fighter, complete with his projectiles and everything. Later on, we would also get Geese Howard, the main antagonist of the Fatal Fury series, Noctis Lucis Kylum, the main protagonist of Final Fantasy XV, and lastly, Negan from The Walking Dead. What a wild set of guest characters, but man if this wasn't such a cool time to be a fan. Wondering who the hell the next guest character might be. Each one of them even came with a stage from their respective game or show. One of the boss fights of arcade mode was also Devil Kazumi, who had a really sick design. She's another character if you count her, I guess. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the core elements of Tekken 7. Let's see, are we forgetting something? Oh, yeah, you can pay for Tekken Bowl, I guess. Alright, I want to talk about the competitive scene, top players, tournaments, and the seasons the game went through later. For now, let's discuss that beautiful story, because, yeah, just when you thought, man, it keeps getting worse, it gets even worse. Alright, let's do it. So, Tekken 7 is mainly told and narrated through the perspective of a no-name journalist who lost his wife and child in the war that Jin started back in Tekken 6. We'll get into why that's such a problem later down the line.
I remember receiving my first letter from my son a few years back. Scribbled on it were the words, "I love you." I was so happy I cried.
But yeah, we get a flashback to 40 years ago when Heihachi first threw Kazuya off of that fateful cliff. We play as Kid Kazuya and try to knock Heihachi out, but it obviously doesn't work out. And we even get a throw Kazuya button. Directly following Tekken 6, Jin awoke in the desert in the Middle East and was wandering around, with his head barely working as there was a manhunt out for him. Nina proceeds to pronounce his name in a dumb way.
Jin Kazama plunged the world into war.
Meanwhile, Heihachi, who's been in hiding since Tekken 5, pretending that the G-Corp attack back in Honmaru had killed him, finally returns to take back what was his for a long time. The Mishima Zaibatsu. The Tekken Force tries to repel the attack, but obviously is no match for Heihachi, as he and Nina go at it. He manages to defeat her, as he says that he's now reclaiming the Mishima Zaibatsu.
ジンが消息不明である今、三島財閥を立て直せるのはわしを置いて他におるまい。
Nina's just like, you gonna pay me? Alright, cool. So everybody's alright with it, and Heihachi, now once again the head of the Zaibatsu, announces the King of Iron Fist Tournament 7. We then get a really cool flashback to Tekken 5's intro in playable form. This is like a dream come true for us kids. If only Tekken 7 wasn't as ugly as a motherfucker. By the way, the reporter rambles on throughout every single one of these chapters, but his voice puts me to sleep so bad I'm pretty much skipping him.
But when strange truths began to come to the light, things didn't appear quite so clear-cut.
So, Heihachi tries to strike a deal with a Society of Exorcists, the Serious Marksmen, an influential group residing in Italy and holding influence over a lot of Europe. He meets with the most powerful of them, Claudio Serafino, and hopes that he can use them to expose Kazuya as a devil to the public, and thus shift public opinion to the Zaibatsu's favor in the war. Claudio, however, refuses to work with them. Heihachi, being Heihachi, beats him in a fight and forces him to agree to help.
Tu sei un umano con la forza di un demone. そうじゃ、わしは正真正銘人間様だ。しかし
Meanwhile, the reporter has a hate boner for Jin. We learned that Jin was at first captured by G-Corp, who found him wandering in the desert. But he transformed and managed to escape, later being found by Hwoarang, who was looking for him after hearing what happened. Hwoarang tries to get Jin to snap out of it, but he's too far gone by this point. He's also heavily weakened from everything he'd gone through, as Hwoarang manages to easily put him down. However, G-Corp finds them once again. They throw a grenade towards Jin, as Hwoarang throws him out of the way, taking the blast for his rival, which explains the eye patch he's wearing in the game. I'm not sure how canon the character episodes are, so I'm just gonna go off the ones that make the most sense. Jin later finds himself in a bazaar in the Middle East, and when G-Corp tracks him down once again, this time Lars makes the rescue and jumps in wearing what looks like spare car parts. Incredible design. Finally, a friendly face, the main protagonist of the last game coming in to save the day. We then play the greatest Souls-like third-person shooter of our generation. Lars manages to get the unconscious Jin into the truck and drives off with him. Claudio hears of a beast of some kind in the east, but if it wasn't for Jin, then who? The journalist continues to dig into the Mishima family's history, discovering something disturbing in the fact that the same year Heihachi seized control of the Mishima Zaibatsu, his wife, Kazumi Hachijo, also died young. This was the reason Kazuya was trying to fight Heihachi as a kid, after all. The Hachijo family seemed to be a clan of demons, all carrying the devil's blood within them. Not that the journalist believed in devils, anyway. He then meets with Lee, the owner of Violet Systems, Lars' adoptive brother and comrade, as he successfully manages to boot Alyssa back up since her failure in Tekken 6. She retains her memory as they escape from a Zaibatsu attack. While Nina and her team go in, Heihachi retreats to a Mishima dojo to meditate in peace. However, he's suddenly attacked by that beast that Claudio talked about. The beast in question is Akuma from Street Fighter. What? The two of them begin an all-out battle. Heihachi is clueless as to who this demon man is and why he's here, but Kazuya is watching, and sends Jax to attack both of them. As they repel the attack, Akuma finally explains why he's here. Many years ago, Kazumi had saved Akuma's life and he was indebted to her. Shortly before her death, she had asked him to repay her by killing both Heihachi and Kazuya, as she foresaw an evil from both of them that would harm the world. Many years later, Akuma is here, explaining that he was simply waiting this long for both Heihachi and Kazuya to get stronger to make the battle more fun and interesting. Heihachi and Kazuya don't quite believe this, as the battle rages on between the old man and the demon. Akuma gets the upper hand in the battle, but seems to be disappointed later on, walking away as Kazuya watches on. Meanwhile, Lee brings Alyssa to Lars as the two of them reunite. The reunion is sadly cut short, however, as Nina and her soldiers close in. Alyssa holds her back, as the primary objective was to protect the unconscious Jin and not let the Zaibatsu take him. Nina then fucking dies. Just kidding, she's in Tekken 8. Heihachi returns to the Zaibatsu and hatches a new plan. He can use the fact that Akuma was now heading for Kazuya to his advantage, cancelling the tournament and once more declaring to the world that he'd died. The journalist saw Jin laid up, a screwdriver in his pocket. This was the man who took everything from him. He had the chance to kill him right then and there, but Lars manages to talk him out of it, saying that Jin is the only hope they have of beating Kazuya and Heihachi and ending the war. If he started it, he was going to be the one who puts an end to it whether he liked it or not. Heihachi's plan is made clear, knowing that Kazuya will have no choice but to use his devil form against Akuma. And Kazuya, knowing Akuma was here, prepares to fight, even dropping a cold line.
貴様を葬る場所を選んだだけだ。
The battle between them ensues, as indeed Kazuya transforms, having been unable to effectively fight against Akuma in his base form. Heihachi and the Zaibatsu record Kazuya in his devil form from multiple angles to show the world. And finally, in the midst of the battle, Heihachi uses the Zaibatsu's orbital laser satellite to shoot a blast from space.
これで終わりじゃ。 ついに全てが終わった。これで世界にわしの勝利が轟くのじゃ。おのれ、ふざけたまねを。
Kazuya is maddened by this, as Claudio says he's done as Heihachi asked and was free to go. Kazuya, where his building once stood, shoots a laser beam of his own towards space, destroying the Zaibatsu satellite. It plunges down towards Earth, thwarting Heihachi further, and in the process killing thousands more from the disaster. As Claudio leaves, he targets Jin himself since he's also a devil, and he meets with Xiaoyu, who he learns is a close friend of Jin and someone he can use to get to him. He decides to travel with her to reach him, although hesitantly as he felt bad about using Xiaoyu. The journalist then decides to try and tell the Mishima Zaibatsu about the expose he's doing on them, but strangely enough, Heihachi agrees to directly meet with him. A car takes him as he's driven to a location far from the Zaibatsu. Heihachi honors what he said and tells the journalist the history of the family. He reveals that Kazumi and him met in the Mishima dojo many years ago. At first, they were rivals who trained together, and later became inseparable, turning to lovers. Not long after, Kazuya was born. Kazumi was at first loving to the boy and always doted on him, and they raised Kazuya for a few years, until that one year where everything went to hell. Kazumi collapsed with a sickness, and though Heihachi did his best to nurse her back to health, she developed a strange split personality and confronted him one night. It must have been shortly before this that she had found Akuma and tended to his wounds, later asking him to kill Heihachi and Kazuya one day, should she fail to do so herself. She transformed into her devil form and attacked her husband.
まだわからぬか、なぜ我がこの家に嫁いだのか。
まさか。
我ら八丈家は貴様のような人間を消すために太古から存在しておる。その使命を今果たす。
After explaining what the Hachijo clan's destiny was to begin with. After managing to defeat her, Heihachi tries to walk it off, but Kazumi attacks once again, attempting to blindside him.
私を殺せるのですか？私を殺せば憎しみの連鎖が。話してください、平八さん。私を愛しているなら。
いいよ。もはや貴様はカズミではない。ならば。
Heihachi crushes her larynx, killing her as a tear falls down his eye. This was around the time he had completely turned around, defeating and trapping his father Jinpachi and seizing the Zaibatsu, and of course, later, throwing Kazuya off of that cliff. He explains that the reason he threw him off was to test him. If Kazuya survived the fall, that would mean he carried the same devil's blood that his mother did. And as expected, he did survive. Heihachi admits that the destruction his family had caused on the world was his fault, and all that was left for him was to reveal the truth and be judged. Ultimately, we understand now that in spite of it all, Heihachi was the lesser of two evils when it came to his conflict with Kazuya. His son had turned into a monster far beyond what even Kazumi had seen in her visions. The journalist is carried out, as everyone wonders one thing now. What was next for Heihachi and Kazuya? The final battle. Kazuya meets Heihachi at a location the old man seemingly chose, as they exchange some words before their final bout. This was the culmination of 40 years of hatred, 40 years of battles between a father and son, from childhood to the many tournaments and more. This was set to be the decisive bout. Who was going to be left standing? Heihachi has the upper hand in the early stages of the fight, managing to overpower his son with raw strength alone. No devil powers of any kind. Angered, Kazuya unleashes some of it, shooting many laser beams towards his father, and yet still Heihachi fights on. It's the last straw for Kazuya, as he transforms into a brand new devil form. Stronger than the likes of any he'd been in before, seemingly from his close fight with Akuma earlier. Heihachi unleashes his full power. Again, no devil shenanigans, just pure old man strength. And despite Devil Kazuya dominating him at first with all sorts of attacks, laser beams, and more, Heihachi refuses to drop. If there was anything to learn from this fight, it's that Heihachi was a goddamn legend. The man was 70 years of age, way past his prime if he even had one. And through sheer strength alone, no devil blood, he held his own against a fully powered up, transformed Devil Kazuya. And he even comes close to defeating him. Kazuya, having been knocked out of his devil form, approaches his father once more. The two are barely able to stand as they throw bombs at each other. Heihachi raises his head one final time, a defiant look on his face. With everything flashing before his eyes, Kazuya, with a look of hatred on his eyes never seen before, throws one final punch. The old King of Iron Fist collapses, his heart having finally stopped. And for one final time, the son carries his father over a cliff, throwing his lifeless body to the unforgiving lava. Later, Lars, Lee, and Alyssa look over a city in ruins. With Kazuya back on top, G Corporation has no intention to end the war. But now, Jin had finally awakened.
世界にこの戦乱を引き起こしたのが貴様であるならば、これを収めるのもまた貴様の宿命。あとはお前しかいないんだ。ああ、俺がやらねば。デビルの力を持つ者として、カズヤは俺が殺す。
And that was the story of Tekken 7. Well, what can I even say anymore? Let's get the positive stuff out of the way first, I guess. Heihachi's character arc is pretty damn good. Despite the fact that he's still an evil, smug bastard throughout most of the game, he reflects at the tail end of his life, knowing that he's not going to be there much longer. The question of who was actually more evil between him and Kazuya was a major one back in the day. It was always debated, but this solidified that Kazuya was the one who ended up far worse. Heihachi was the lesser of two evils, and right at the end, he says that all that's left for him is to reveal the truth and be judged. And on that topic, my god, what a great final fight. Possibly my favorite battle in the entire franchise. An emotional roller coaster and a perfect ending to the long blood feud between a father and his son. The blows exchanged, the flashbacks, Heihachi's defiance. He stuck it to Kazuya for one final time. He damn near kicked that boy's shit in at 70 plus years of age in an active volcano, with no special devil powers or anything, just his pure old man strength and anger. and he still came close to beating a far younger, fully powered up devil-transformed Kazuya. Do you understand how badass that is? The two had a final showdown and traded blows, giving one another turns like it's a back-and-forth pro wrestling exchange, and finally, Kazuya dealt the final punch right to Heihachi's old heart. I love that it was clearly the punch that finally killed him. His heart had finally stopped beating, but just to be sure and to honor an old family tradition, Kazuya carried his body and walked it to the edge, throwing Heihachi into the volcano for one final time. It was stunning. A perfect end to the old man, and a perfect setup for Tekken 8, as Kazuya now became a goddamn supervillain. A literal Darth Vader, and it was now up to Jin to try and stop him like his old grandfather. Okay, that's all for the good stuff. Now, where do Tekken 7's problems lie when it comes to the story? What a useless cast of new characters! Katarina is there looking for her dad, who's implied to be Gigas. Nothing is done with this. Lucky Chloe turns Eddie into a joke. Josie is Josie. Shaheen does nothing. Even existing characters like Claw and Paul do nothing. And then there's this fucker. What is this guy doing here? There are so many questions that get the dumbest fucking answers ever. Who is he? A human or just some demon no one knows about? I don't know. Kazumi saved his life and now he's indebted to her. Okay, saved his life from what? Okay, she wanted him to kill Heihachi and Kazuya as she felt that one day they were gonna wreak havoc on the world. Why the fuck did he wait until after the entire world was in ruin before he finally decided to show his face? Because he was waiting for them to get stronger. Yeah, great job on making good on your promise, you fucking goober. The world is now a mess and both of them are still alive. He even attacks Kazuya in the volcano afterwards, still fails to beat him, then just disappears. Well, I guess it was in the contract with Capcom that he had to have a big role in the story and not just be a canon guest character. I don't fucking know. Alright, what the fuck was the point of Claudio's involvement now? Heihachi said he wanted to use him and the series marksman to expose Kazuya as a devil. But he literally then just does it himself when Akuma attacks him. This is not what I meant when I said please use the cast of new characters. How about the fact that the King of Iron Fist tournament has literally been reduced to nothing? This is the second time around we don't even have one. Ugh, Jesus Christ, what else? Oh, don't even get me started on this little fucker.
How do you know about that?
Dude, speak up! Holy shit! I don't know who the fuck made the decision to tell this game's story using this monotone-ass journalist, but they need better ideas. If you're gonna have random guy McGee be a central character, at least hire a damn good voice actor for him. Yeah, hey guys, Jin killed my family. I'm pretty bummed out about it. I'll have 2 number 9s. A number 9 large, a number 6 with extra dip, a number 7. I wish Jin murdered you as well with your family, you little shithead. God. You know what, this is not even remotely related to the story or anything, but it also pisses me off, so I'm gonna yell about it either ways. Tekken 7 was the first game in the series to get hit with the wave of minimalist logos that we saw get popularized in the 2010s. Look at that original logo! It looked so good, it had such a classic Tekken charm to it. And then they just had to get rid of the kanji and even change the colors to a drab silver. Dude, why? This isn't even a fuck you to Tekken 7 or its story as much as it's a fuck you to minimalism. I just wanted to add that. Yeah, alright, I think that's all I got to rant about. Oh yeah, let's check on the status of one of my favorite characters, Asuka Kazama in this game. It wasn't bad enough that the game was ugly as hell in Unreal Engine 4, but they didn't have the budget to properly animate any of the endings like in 5 and 6. So now we're even stuck with ugly-ass endings made in Engine. Yeah, so Tekken 7 utilizes character episodes. Basically, 2 characters meet, you get to play both of their perspectives, and, you decide which one's canon, I guess? They're all pretty damn boring and inconsequential. Miguel finds Jin, presumably after the end of the main story, and beats up on him, but then later says he actually doesn't want to kill him now and wants to do it when he's happy and actually enjoying his life. Claudio has his thing with Xiao Yu, Hwoarang has his thing with Devil Jin, and literally none of the endings are even a slight bit memorable. I'm not kidding, there's nothing I can remember here, when I could name at least 3 from the other games that had something to remember. Oh, well, sad, but at least Tekken 7 introduces a gallery where we get to not only look at every Tekken intro, ending, and animation in its history, but also look at some cool artworks, so that's neat. The PlayStation 4 version, exclusively for some reason, also has a jukebox mode where you can set any Tekken soundtrack you want to any stage. And speaking of the soundtrack, let's talk about that as well, because I'm not a fan. Remember when I said I like Tekken 6's soundtrack because it feels like a good mix between Tekken's classic music and the more modern dubstep and techno approach they were trying to go for? Well, Tekken 7 kinda just fully goes for that. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still like some of these, but it's just not my thing. I like the more traditional sounding stuff we had in the older games, and even the new stuff was good when done a little simpler. This, though? Yeah, not a fan. But with that said, there's still some classic sounding tracks and some general good stuff. So let's take a look at some standouts. Then there's the soundtrack for the final fight. My god, what a fucking banger. Somehow bordering between hype and emotional. I couldn't imagine a more perfect track to accompany that battle. And yeah, that was the soundtrack. Definitely not my cup of tea, but if you enjoy it, good on ya, I guess. Tekken 7 was also the first game to fully commit to each stage having two different soundtracks for round 1 and the final round, so that's pretty cool. Let's move on over and really briefly talk about the customization, because, yeah, when I said it peaked in Tekken 6, I meant it. Man, what a downgrade. There's so much left to be desired here. So much good stuff removed, like individual hair parts, decals, clothing items for several different parts of the body, just so much stuff missing. Most of the unique clothing options for the individual characters are gone and replaced with generic pieces of clothing. And yeah, it's just overall so much more stripped down. But we did get some cool crossovers here and there, with my personal favorite being the New Japan Pro Wrestling collaboration. You already know I'm a fucking simp for pro wrestling, so seeing NJPW stuff in Tekken was more or less like a dream come true. Those Bullet Club shirts were cool enough as it is, but we got 2 full crossover costumes for King and Lars as well. With King getting Kazuchika Okada's outfit, which even alters his rage art to the Rainmaker, and Lars gets Hiroshi Tanahashi with the Sling Blade. God, that's just the coolest thing ever for me. And yeah, I can only hope we get more collabs like this in Tekken 8. Alright, that was it for the content that Tekken 7 had to offer. What we're gonna talk about now is something new. The concept of seasons. Because Tekken 7 was there for a far longer time than the games that came before it. Almost 10 years if we're counting the arcade release. That meant that they had to release new content every once in a while to keep things fresh. And that meant that the balancing was going to be shaken up a few times as well. New mechanics getting added, getting removed, new characters and all. So let's talk about the competitive scene as well as seasons 1 to 4 of Tekken 7. First of all, my god did this game bring it all back. We'd not seen such a vibrant and active competitive scene since the days of Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection. Packed tournaments, full house evos, incredible matches between legendary players. How about that set between JDCR and Lil Majin? How about JDCR and Knee? And speaking of Knee, how about his now iconic rivalry against Arslan Ash? Every player brought something fresh to the table. It was really a special time like no other. It felt like we were actually connected and not just divided and constantly fighting. Just watching some good-ass Tekken. Incredible players like CBM, Ulsan, Lohai, John Ding, Atif, Chikurin, and my Jin main goats, Book and Daniel Motto all reached new and unseen heights with Tekken 7. It was just such a good time whenever these guys were on stage, man. With Season 1, we only had Geese and Noctis as guest characters. Of course, they were paid and not free. After all, we were fresh off of Tekken Revolution and knew well and good that Bamco was ready to squeeze our wallets. With Season 2, we got way more. 4 legacy characters returning and another guest, as Anna, Lei, Marduk, Armor King, Julia, and Negan joined the roster, with all of these announcements usually being hyped up by our GOAT, Harada. Season 3 gave us 2 returning characters and 2 fresh faces, with Zafina from Tekken 6 and Ganryu making their returns, and Leroy Smith and Fakumram joining the family. And finally, Season 4 only gave us 2 more. Kunimitsu, although not really as it's not her but her daughter, and the brand new Lydia Sobieska. By the end of it all, Tekken 7 had 51 playable characters. And by that point, we were experiencing some real burnout. I mean, the game had been out for years. It was still ugly as hell, even the tournaments were getting repetitive as it was usually the Pakistani players and the Korean players playing it safe, with a no-wall stage, usually infinite azure, and it was just poke, backdash, and repeat. Which isn't bad, but at some point you want to see something new, and this is all without mentioning the ungodly amount of patches the game needed, as so many characters released broken as hell. Still, despite the fact that Tekken 7 had so many problems, definitely overstayed its welcome and had one of the worst stories in the series for the lore enthusiasts, God did it do well. Over 12 million copies were sold when it was all said and done, and saying it made the team a huge profit is an understatement. This game revived the series in the literal sense. It was on its deathbed when Tekken Tag 2 made no money, and we were stuck eating special arts in Tekken Revolution. But Tekken 7 not only brought fans back, but brought millions of new fans, connected people all around the world, and gave small communities a platform where they can showcase their abilities. It was around 2022, years and years into our time with the game, when we finally got a little teaser of the next generation.
Get ready.
Steve! No! Steve! Let's go! Let's go! Oh my God! It's Harada! Ashek Harada! No way! We're not gonna fight! This is ridiculous!
And yeah, the rest is up to the next video. So let me not get over emotional as we're not at that section of the video just yet. We're getting to it. Only now, I wasn't a kid anymore around this time. So, I guess instead of calling it childhood memories, we can call it teenage memories? Yeah, I think that works. Let's dive into my memories with Tekken 7. Despite the fact that I hated Tekken Tag 2 at first, I eventually grew to love it back on the Xbox 360, which is a time I've talked about extensively, one of the most magical periods of my childhood and early teenage years. But of course, I was getting older and maturing little by little, and with that, I began to want an upgrade. By this time, the year must have been 2017 or so. I was about 13. And though I still had my Xbox 360, I had kinda stopped playing both Tag 2 and 6, and kinda lost touch with the Tekken franchise, but that was about to change. I wasn't really on the internet much during this time. I mean, of course we had access to it, but I was never a kid who used it much beyond Flash games and YouTube videos. This sounds weird to most, but it was the Middle East, we always got things late here, so I was kind of not caught up with the latest Tekken news. I of course knew that Tekken 7 was in development, but didn't follow any of the latest updates. So, after putting away my Xbox to study for my exams around the start of summer that year, I was saving up some money. And as usual with these kinds of purchases, I took my older brother and my dad with me so we could look through the game stores and see what the best deal was. Over here, we didn't really have chains like GameStop. We had one big bazaar that was full of game stores selling all kinds of stuff. So we just had to go through each one looking for a good deal. And finally, after a bit of searching, I found a good and new PS4 Slim. This was it. After years with the Xbox, it was time for me to upgrade. Having now bought the PlayStation 4, I actually wondered what games to get with it. I once again wandered around a few different stores, We got Dark Souls 3, GTA 5, and I looked around a bit more. And what did I see on the shelf? Tekken 7. I didn't even know it had come out. I looked at the date that day, and it was June 3rd, 2017. It had literally been released the day prior. I immediately felt a rush of excitement and picked it up with my brand new PS4. And having had a limited amount of games to play on that console, cause goddamn they were expensive back then and I was just a teenager, I put in so many hours into the first season alone. At first, like usual, I mained Jin, but then slowly switched over to Lars and enjoyed a long period of playing him. That's kind of where my username comes from, Lars and Jin. I was there for all the incredible tournaments, the reveals, the amazing matches. I was giddy seeing Lars do the sling blade while wearing Tanahashi's costume, despite the fact that this game had such an ass story and burnt me out like no other one did. Because of the memories, because of the literal fact that I grew up through my teenage years with this game, and because of what it did for the franchise as a whole, I don't think I can ever even bring myself to dislike it. Even with how tired I was by 2022, which was where I first switched back to maining Jin and started to properly learn the game and get better at it, I looked forward to the future of the series. And that future would be nowhere near possible had it not been for Tekken 7. I'll never forget being there with all those people. It's moments like the matches and the reveals with Harada hyping us up on stage that connected us all around the world. And all of that would not be possible without Tekken 7. So once again, thanks for the memories. And thanks for the good-ass Tekken.